Howdy, hackers, and welcome to another episode of FairLight TV. This is a follow-up to one of your favorite episodes so far. Photon did his top 10 OCS demos for us, and that was much appreciated by you viewers. So this is the follow-up. It's the AGA, including EGA, I think. Or at least that is discussed. So it's Amiga time! Over to Photon. Okay, I have to make a little small thing here. I need to communicate one little thing. So, you know the joke where the teacher asked little Pelle, what is 5 plus 5? And Pelle goes like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the teacher said, no. You need to count in your head. You cannot count on your fingers. So take your hands, put them in your pocket, and then try to count again, not using your fingers. And then Pelle goes, 11? Okay, so that joke is actually applicable for today's episode. I asked Photon to pick his 10 favorite demos, and as it shows, when we look back at the recorded material, we have 10 plus 1. So this time it's actually Photon's top 11 demos. Over to Photon. Hello everybody, and welcome to another Amiga special with Photon of Scoopex. So Henrik went through 10 magnificent OCS demos, so the original chipset, and now we are looking forward to the 10 best, according to Photon's AGA demos, so the advanced graphics on the Amiga. Hello, Henrik, and welcome back.
Hey, Pontus. Hey, Bacchus. I'm glad to be back. I've selected 10 demos again, and I've chosen them as sort of talking points on the topic of what makes the Amiga AGA different.
Okay, so when you look for 10, what kind of criteria are you looking for?
Well, again, I had to select demos, well, all but a few maybe, because I was missing from a large part of this era. I've had to come back and get my own AGA machine and go through the back catalog, and I've done that ever since I came back in 2005 and discovered what others had done. And what was the original question again?
No, well, the criteria for looking for what kind of things are you looking for in a demo? If I rephrase it, did you have like favorite periods where a number of things were more in fashion?
Well, I missed all those periods. I've only been here since 2005. So my first impression, I think, was Starstruck by the Black Lotus.
Yeah.
And it affected me greatly. So before that, there was the stock AGA machine. And then you have Roots 2.0 and a bunch of mostly Finnish, I think, groups early on fighting, trying to learn this new chipset because there was no documentation. So what I learned when I assumed that there would be a perfectly good, this late in the game, perfectly good book on how to program the AGA hardware, but there was none. There were text files that were being compiled from leaked documents and hardware hacking, basically.
So there is no like hardware reference manual for AGA, or?
No, there isn't. There were a few sketchy release notes that told buyers what to expect in the AGA chipset. So, for example, it would share the new screen modes and the new palette and the possibilities for true color RGB and things like that. But in general, the differences weren't that huge.
Mm.
You see, Commodore was supposed to develop a completely different architecture called AAA, and that was not based on bitplanes at all. So that was a totally different true color architecture, and instead we got AGA, but programmers will be programmers, and soon they figured out the quick palette swaps and all the other stuff that was in the AGA chipset and adapted their effects accordingly. So for me, there's a big era of experimentation in, I would say, 1993, and then in 1994, the first real AGA-only competitions were held. And in 1994, the value of FastMem appeared so huge
Mm.
that Demos started using it, and ever since then, it's been, if you can put an expansion card in your Amiga 1200, why not put a CPU in it that isn't pulled back to 14 megahertz, you know?
Mm. Well, I mean, the Amiga 500 is pretty much like the C64. It's pretty much like a set composition. All of them are basically the same. If you have with or without FastMem, that's of course a difference. But AGA machines, you would have like a plethora of revisions of CPUs. You would have the 020, possibly original, and then you would have the 030s and 040s and all of that. So Demos, how much do they take into account the CPU that sits in them and sort of adjusts accordingly?
Well, it's been the case of realizing, well, first there was a battle between, the thing is, the AGA machines don't have a faster blitter. So for the most part, the blitter can only be used for some simple things.
Mm.
And when the CPU is as low as it was in the Amiga 1200,
Mm.
there was still some use for the blitter, but not a whole lot. You try to use the extra colors, you try to you got a good bonus in that the chipset didn't steal as many cycles from the CPU,
Mm.
and that helped a lot. And then you had a small instruction cache in the 68020, and that was basically it. And there was a good amount of exploration of that. But at the same time, PC was coming along. It still didn't have, you know, a widespread use of GPUs, graphics cards with standardized acceleration. That would come later. And also an OS to use them in a standardized mode, like with a framework or something like that. So on the PC, as on the Amiga, we both rode on the train of accelerators or fast CPUs and try to use them as fully as we could.
Mm. Well, I mean, if you look at the graphics possibilities of an Amiga, is there a GPU that can do like multiplications and stuff like that that is sort of standard on PC graphic cards?
Well, if you mean like an accelerator in the sense of a GPU today,
Yeah.
I think some Radeon cards
Mm.
may have some shader cores. I don't know that though, and I don't know a demo that uses them.
Mm.
I do know about RTG, real-time graphics cards though. So these would be like the PC RTG graphics cards in that they had a blitter of sorts. It
Mm.
it wasn't as complex maybe as the Amiga blitter or as versatile, but it could copy blocks very quickly. I feel like I'm treading on thin ice here because I wasn't really a part of PC programming on the graphics cards level then either. I had sort of a modest PC with well, later I got a VGA card and that brought my resolution up to 800 by 600, but it was super slow. It was super slow. So if you used like Windows 3.1 on that, you spent a lot of time looking at an hourglass.
Oh.
So it was those graphics cards, in my opinion, were mostly good enough for small screen updates at a time, not rendering entire frames in a
Oh.
rapid tempo. And PC DOS games also reflected that a little bit. They had to be very optimized and very quick and very low res, and maybe even shrink the screen some to run fluently.
And just so we sort of ensure we have covered that. So when are you saying that if you have a modern CPU in your Amiga, or modern like 030 and faster than that, the blitter is basically obsoleted because the CPU can do that? There is no point in pushing the instructions or pushing the task to the blitter because the CPU can do it faster anyways.
Yeah, that's true. And what you could use the blitter for is if you have spare time left over and want to find some example where you can actually waste the blitter cycles while doing a full calculation with the CPU or something with internal instructions, then the blitter is of some use. So this took some getting used to, I think.
Yeah.
Even for the most avid Amiga fans, you didn't have much to play with anymore. You had the chipset, and every time you wanted to display, the chipset could display the frames, but apart from that, you wanted basically everything in Fastman.
Okay, cool. I am now very, very eager to see the list that you have prepared. So, should we go over to the list?
All right, so first demo coming up is a 40K intro. It is from the awesome 40K intro era. That I think is one of the golden ages of Amiga, any chipset. And the effects look like they do because you had to keep all your effects on the CPU, and you also wanted to do more mathematically advanced effects. So here's Pygmy Project's GeForce. It is one that I've watched many times. It's one of my favorite 40K intros of all time. Partly because of being a timepiece, as we see these garrote shapes that look kind of weird. You don't quite know what it is supposed to be at first.
Well, it's somebody preparing his chocolate pudding. I'm absolutely sure. So, and that was sort of the dessert, and now we're into the main dish, which is absolutely fish.
That's a school of fish, and similarly shaded. Here's an example of flexible animation of the individual fish. Here too we have 3D with animated 3D. When I say animated, I mean not that this is an animation, I mean that the objects are animated, obviously. So because of the size requirements, you would throw up a pixel buffer, throw out some polygons and start rendering. And this face would have been quite the challenge to create the model for back in the day, I think. A fish you could create, slow poly, but here's quite a few polygons, and you can see a light source moving across the face and the shading changing with it.
And we do see a few glitches, but that could be the recording, and it could be like a bug in the demo, of course, but no way to make sure without actually watching it on real hardware, or the intended real hardware.
Yeah, I think so. No programmer can be future compatible because you don't know what's going to be created in the future in the form of hardware. You can only be backwards compatible. So I think you should run this demo on the intended hardware, which is a stock Amiga 1200 with 4 megabytes of fast RAM. And now we have some transformation of the mesh as well there for the face. So here you can see some highlights, but I still think this demo is entirely garrote shaded. It is a very, very early demo, and you can do some specular work with Gorod as well, or even palette lookups. We see a favorite object of the demo scene, apart from fishes and aquatic mammals. We see a donut, but this is the symbol for Pygmy project, of course.
Donut is this donut itself, or donuts with fishes around it?
Well, it's both. It's meant to demonstrate that this is an in-convex 3D engine that is capable of Gorod shading. And there's even some music in there with a haunting rhythm. It does sound better on the real machine, in my ears, at least. But it's an early example. I've watched this many times, and it's a personal favorite of mine. So this is one of the first I ran, I think, when I came back to the scene and got my first Amiga 1200, which had I don't remember the brand, but it had a 68030 accelerator with 8 megs of fast RAM and no FPU, I don't think. So we can talk about FPU later, maybe when demos start to use them. So here we have what is possibly the first Phong shading Amiga, and this video has a bit of a stretched aspect ratio. I'm sorry about that.
And the difference between Groud and Phong, could you?
Well,
and I just hear thong, which is some female underwear, I guess, but
PHONG, which is the last name of a mathematician and computer graphics researcher in the 1970s, who improved on Gorod shading by interpolating vertex normals instead of interpolating colors. So when you fill the polygon, the way you smooth the edges of the polygons to make round objects, you can use Gorod, and you can divide them up into layers for diffuse and specular. But what you can't do yet on computers is ray trace in real time. You can't calculate the normal difference between the vertex normal and the light source for every pixel on the screen. So what you do is you interpolate, and the way that Phong improves on Gorod is by interpolating the normal, which forces another calculation, but a relatively small one, as opposed to just interpolating the colors between the corners, edges of the polygons.
Nice.
Yeah, this 64K intro has some progression. It's not totally about the effects only. There will be some more of these, but because this was the fantastic intro era of the Amiga. I think it was a golden age. So this is a blur rotator in chunky mode. Often what you needed to do in 3D was to apply motion blur, and most of the blur we'll see in this video will be a variation of motion blur. It's all about how you form your vector grid. So blur is a 2D function. And here comes the Phong back with some specular added. So you can even see the light source reflected in the polygons here. It makes it look very nice and legit. You also have some more design to this demo, whereas Pygmy Project's intro had a black background. As I say that, we get a black background, but overall, and perhaps due to better compression and a bit of extra space in the 64K category. We have some design, and the overlays you see here are not alpha channel, they are sprites, I'm pretty sure. The AGA chipset also improved in the sprite department. And the background here is likely a generated picture to fit this into 64K. So very short, you might think, but these are obviously intros. You can't have as much as you want in them. And it was a development, and I think it was an important demo, and it alerted me to Sonic or Sonic Click, who has also released some more demos for AGA. So here is another 64K intro, and let's see if you believe that this fits in 64K. So now we have a big jump here. I think this is from 2001. The coder is Exploder. He's, I'm not going to say it, but he's more or less a one-man coder group. And he would later go on to proceed and make awesome effects for Amiga PPC with AGA and RTG as well. The music is of the time. Maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea these days, but what I liked about this demo was he has been working on a game unreleased, and this is a proper 3D engine with some extra effects on top. It's not purely made to impress everyone with math skills or do the best optimized routine, but it does look good, and it's a good representation of 3D engines of the time. Maybe one of the best and most applicable. It's not special cased, is what I'm trying to get at. There may be sort of a story to this, if you want to infuse it with such, but I have selected some demos also from concept and story and design and other things that become more and more important now that you have many more colors to play with. So this is a true color 3D engine in half resolution on a shrunken screen, and the recording is likely from a 68060. Because there is so much precision going on. You have sub-pixel precision, unlike in the previous demos. And here you see a classic water effect. I don't know what to relate it the closest to. A byproduct of shade bobs. Shade bobs and bump mapping had a child. That's the best I could describe it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's absolutely weird that he managed to squeeze all this in a minuscule amount of memory.
Yeah, and especially the music, I think. And he has developed several software synthesizers, and the one you hear now is, I would say, perfectly adequate, don't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you don't like techno, it is capable, and it's early. What you can also hear is that the music is not 4-channel anymore, which makes sense. There would have been a long pre-calc period before this intro started, because it worked like Synter and other AGA software synthesizers in that it pre-calculates the entire song to fast memory to be able to play it, or chip memory to be able to play it all back with no consumption of, well, very little consumption of CPU time. So let's pause this demo here. So now we've left the intros. now we are watching Nerve Axis and their demo Relic, which is appreciated as a true classic. Maybe the precursor to Lapses by Mature Furk. And Nerve Axis, as I understand it, was mostly from the UK. And let me see when this is from, 2001? No, 1998. I think I messed up the order of the demos here. So this demo would then be before Incision. I'm not sure. Might be wrong on that. But it's a mostly chronological order here. And it's
And the fact that it says 50 FPS here, would that make it an exception? So would previous demos be slower?
No, that's just the frame rate of the video for those effects that do run in 50 FPS. And it's also needed to capture any interlace mode effects. So if you were skillful, you could use the interlace mode to do a half frame rate effect. And if you could keep all the calculations and rendering in 25 FPS, you could use interlace then to get a better effect. I don't know if we're going to see any interlace effects here. It's mostly intended as what can I say? Like Lapses was an example of mature. The difference from the previous demo that we saw, I think, would be that the previous demo looked a little bit like PlayStation 1 in the rendering. You had the standard, you had a good 3D engine. It was fast, it was sub-pixel, it had some anti-aliasing on it, and you had these glows and things, but it didn't have, for example, there will be demos here that used baked lighting for the textures to give a more mature appearance to the graphics, a more modern appearance, and a more a style that tells that there was someone involved that could render realistic scenes without the need of them being run in a demo as an effect. And this is a representation of that. You will see some coordinate bobbing, coordinate aliasing here, because this is actually on a quite small screen, like the previous demo. And that is simply on purpose, just like Lapses. If you want subpixel precision and want to have all the colors and do a lot in your scenes to raise the graphics quality of them, then you need to go down in screen size. I'm not personally a fan of that, but I also have to represent not only what I think is the best and what I like the most. It's clear that, so here just because I said that, we get an interlaced picture that didn't record properly, but that could also be my monitor set to 120 Hertz right now. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure it displays properly.
I mean, this is recorded by somebody to YouTube and it's played, and then we record it, and it will be re-put on YouTube, which means that it's undergone several iterations of potentially harmful artifacts. So
yep. So here you see an example of light maps, and you also see, well, we haven't really seen, I don't think the textures are 100% correct, just like in Lapses, but the objects certainly look good. And here we are out in space with some alien artifact UFO station object, and you also get some shader-like effects on top of that. So there would be earlier demos from other groups, And the way they would do some effects like this would be to use particles. I'm not sure that's the case here, because all of this is rendered in 4 times the resolution at least. And then you have a very good filter down to what you see. It is a step above effects in the quality here.
Music is also really nice.
Yeah, but now we have a lot more. So this is 1.8 megs compressed, I think, and just gonna check so we don't go to the next demo here. And overall, this is a very nice presentation overall. Now though, we have a bit of a more normal effect, just textured terrain, but you can see it. So I don't think this is fog, because it seems to be somewhat adapted to the terrain. But this scene is, I think this scene is fantastic. You can hear some new age music. There's just a whole lot of work, not only in the coding department, going into delivering something like this. This is one of the demos I've selected to show understanding for that.
Yeah, super nice. I mean, this is clearly not just code porn. It's sort of telling a story where code is a vital part, but it's more storytelling.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of this is rendered with the same engine. All the scenes except the Relic part when they show the logo. And this shaking is not coordinate imprecision, it's something else. Just you wait and see. Something is happening.
The pyramid is launching.
We have ancient aliens or something, but the other way around. We have the Inca pyramids flying off into space as a spaceship. And that's kind of a cool idea. Why shouldn't there be demos and story in demos? So now the pyramid is an ark, actually. So Noah is going back to his maker, maybe.
And we're back to where we started.
I think this demo is also important because many have copied this sort of vibe that you get from this demo. The feeling of suspense, the adaptation of a script, trying to make it like a movie. So I think it was a precursor for what would come. So now we're terraforming, but the other way around again. We're destroying the Earth instead. I'm here on my spaceship, so I don't need you anymore. I'm gonna blow up everybody. I don't really know the motives of the scriptwriter here. but I think it's to showcase this awesome explosion effect and to make an impact on everyone at the demo party.
Excellent. Yeah, really excellent. Super.
All right. So coming up next is the next to last intro. I did want to celebrate intros also. It's not all about demos, for me at least. I appreciate very much when you can do a lot with little, even if, as I said, the AGA chipset doesn't add much and you have to do a lot of work to get something useful out of even a 68060. You can't really expect to be doing real-time ray tracing even on the CPU and just showing it on the screen, you know? But
And just when you say intro, for me that normally means that it sits in front of a crack. But you're talking intro is like it's like the minuscule demos, which is restricted in size, right?
yes, so this is the artificial size limit imposed on
Yeah.
mostly compo entries in competitions.
Mm.
So um, perhaps, I don't know how it happened. We didn't have them back in the day. Like, I can't remember having any separate intro competitions on Amiga OCS back in the day.
Mm.
But um, a few years later, like 93, 94, then we started to see the 40K intro compos and later the 64K intro compos. And maybe they got very many contributions for the demo compos, and some of them were intros, or they just wanted to compete more and they didn't want to blow it all on amazing 3D and graphics resources like we saw in the previous demo.
But I mean, they make total sense, especially on PC. When a PC is powerful enough to basically play a video, you can just launch your contribution to a demo competition as a video, and then what you're doing is basically just playing it back, and that would be no fun because there needs to be sort of real-time elements to it. Otherwise it's not a demo, otherwise it's something else. So on the PC they had to introduce like artificial boundaries to make sure that a number of the cheat tricks wouldn't be possible, like playing a plain video. But that's not really the case on the Amiga.
Well, it did happen, but usually when it's intros, then you have to spend a lot of time in pre-calc.
Mm.
And then you blow everything you pre-calced as an effect, and then you show some text while the next effect pre-calcs. So it did actually happen, but I don't really have a problem with pre-calc because you have to show something else while that is going on.
Yeah.
It's also not real time, of course, but then you have this age-old debate, and I don't think it's right to go into that debate, really. You don't know exactly what you're watching. You don't
Mm.
know if it's real time or not, but in some sense, you have to trust the authors.
Mm.
And size limits do help to how shall I put this? Increase the chance of effects being real time.
Mm.
But it's no guarantee, certainly not today when you can crunch like 250, 300K into a 64K.
Mm.
But this was 2001, I believe, and it's Xeon by nature. And I talked about you can't do real-time ray tracing, but this one looks pretty close to it. There should be some ray casting going on in this demo. So no Gorod, no, not really any texture mapping. Um, you have what looks like intersected volumes instead. So that was already a kind of a different object because here you can see the landscape is made out of polygons. And again, this is a nice anti-aliased scene here with some custom shaders. And when coming from a full-blown demo to this intro, well, you have to consider everything. They had to fit everything. The objects are sort of abstract and probably generated for the demo, but you have some nice things like partial translucency and finely tuned reflections and the anti-aliasing going on, and overall a very nice graphical styling that, okay, it looks a bit cheesy if you're looking for movie realism, but I think it looks good enough, and I like the music of this one.
And this was 64K?
64K, and unlike Exploder's demo, we're now back to 4-channel music, but I still think it looks and sounds good. Here's the intersected volumes again, so you can do plane cut, can you? I can bring that up one level. You can see some glitches here and there, but as I said, do run the demos on as appropriate hardware as you can manage. And what's also nice about this demo is that even though it's half resolution, is it? Maybe it's not, but even though it's this resolution, you don't get the shaky coordinates of other demos, which originated, I think, from a very, very optimized matrix calculation routine.
Could you extract the a font from somewhere, or is that something you need to have as part of your payload?
You can only extract the built-in Topaz font in ROM unless you use something external.
Oh.
And typically for Amiga, it wouldn't allow any kind of file outside the demo, so you couldn't load a disk font, etc. that happened to be installed on the user's system.
One of the things you do in the 64 is you take the built-in font and then you manipulate it. You mathematically manipulate it so it looks a bit different.
So here you have real-time shadows and lighting. So instead of the light maps that we saw before, the light map or a layer on top of the texture is calculated from the moving light source. And overall, this feels like a demo, even though it's a 64K. We've been running for a few minutes now, and it's quite different from the earlier 40K intros, in that you do get a sense of satisfaction. You do get to watch it for a bit and enjoy the smooth effects. We have some hidden lines as well. Overall, a very polished renderer here. So because so many effects were similar, there are 1,000 variants of Phong shading. And Phong shading can also be used for environment mapping, which is when the environment or something like it is reflected as a texture in the polygons. But overall, this was new to me when I saw it, when I came back in 2005. It was only a few years old by then. Here's the gang that did it. We even get an end part after all that. But I think this renderer is different from hundreds of demos coming before it. And different is, I think, sometimes good. How many times do we have to see like a morphing blob on the screen? It happens even today. So
yeah, of course. But I guess it's sort of a phase. Everybody needs to do it. This is one of the things that sort of defines you as a coder. So everybody needs to go through that phase before they can take additional steps.
We are actually going to see a newer demo with the blobs in it. But I've selected that demo for another reason. Namely, not so much, well, I guess a story, but more like a concept demo. A demo that wants to make a point besides effects, besides the scenes that they created. They want to tell a story, but they want to do it from something they want to say. And coming up, now we're in 2006, and
TBL.
It's a famous symbol. It's a huge demo. It's 18 megabytes compressed. But it affected me greatly when I saw it, and I think it affected and influenced a bunch of groups ever since they released it. So with TBL, you can expect some shenanigans from time to time, but this demo has so much good stuff in it and has a killer soundtrack and is an awesome experience. I couldn't not have this demo on my top 10.
Shenanigans, you mean that every now and then they release stuff that isn't up to par, or what do you mean with that?
I don't think it's up to me to talk about this infected question, and this infected question has been with us since you can see comments from, well, you can't see the comments from before 2000 because that's when Poet started, but some groups got called out for what I call presenting animation as effect, or cheating too much, or whatever you want to call it. But here the Black Lotus represents themselves in the best way possible, I think, with tons and tons of work on fitting everything together, making an awesome experience, having a great 3D engine, having some camera work in there, an awesome scene with a robot, 2 awesome scenes with a robot, and lots of other stuff. You can't watch this and not be impressed in my book, and that is more important.
Yeah.
Here we go. Starstruck by the Black Lotus. So now I will be talking about some other things, because now we're getting into storytelling territory and moods and stuff like this. Already the song sets a mood, and so do the graphics here. The skies are gray, and the city is perhaps in ruins. So what we're seeing here is a simple, you might think, simple scroller. It's not full frame rate, but obviously we have a couple layers on top that have to be blended, alpha blended.
Louis 500.
Yep.
It's for sure his font.
Yeah, and overall there will be plenty of fonts in this one, I'm sure. Overall, you can see why this would have taken a while to produce, is what I'm saying. Lots of work from many people from a big team. So this is the competition version, because that is the one that affected me the most. They have released a final version, so check that out, which is longer and has more content in it. So already there you could see the textures with excellent backlighting. And this could have been an entirely grayscale part, but I think they have used the palette to great effect here, the palette. So. And here is my most awesome 3D scene ever.
I just had to look, but in the interview with Louis, we did play this one as well, so it's been shown in the channel before, and it surely deserves to be shown again.
So stutterings and stuff that you might see now might be up to us recording in 2 stages from the actual video. I think you could see a bit of stuttering also in the previous robot scene. And the soundtrack is one of the absolute best that has ever been made on it. Does so much to tell the stories at the moment and excite you. Exterminate Luigi. Exterminate Maui. Both competitors at the time, as was Ephidrena. And if you want to greet somebody and tell them you're better, this is how you do it. Take note.
Oh no, that one we cut away.
And just look at the graphics quality of the robot. Let's say this was a PC demo. And same for this mechanical fish. As I said, we have a fascination with fishes and aquatic mammals in the demo scene. And again, the 3D graphics quality is excellent. I think the word I'm looking for is grading. Someone will have gone over these scenes over and over again and graded them to make them look this good. The last scene asks a question.
To be honest, I mean, sorry guys for having two people watching a demo with you and not commenting on what we see, but there is nothing to be added. It's simply amazing. It's anything you would say would seem so futile. So it's not even possible to add anything relevant to it. It speaks so highly for itself.
Yes, I think it makes a statement, and I think it makes the statements the authors intended.
Mm.
I think they did a great job on this one. So now we have another winner. So I visited Breakpoint, let's see, from 2009 to 2011, I think. Might have been only 2009, 2010. This is maybe a polar opposite, but with an equal killer soundtrack.
Nature and Tractor. Jesus Christ, Motocross.
Yeah, so, well, I'm not going to undersell this demo because I talked about intent before,
Mm.
and delivering on that intent and making the demo as you want it to be. And I think Nature and Tractor succeeded in making something, anything, for this killer soundtrack and somehow making it crazy and still fit. And remember to play this demo on loud volume. What the fuck? Jackie Chan face. Here we have some robot shenanigans, but it's funny. The music style is punk. You haven't heard that before?
Oh, you're saying.
And one of the things that makes this demo affect me so much when I saw it was that, well, we'll see. So now we're sort of in the middle part of the demo.
That's Tron made of tractors.
Yes, and you never know what you're going to see next, right? It is unpredictable. Now we're going down in the sink, apparently. And now we're traveling with ZZ Top in their Cadillac car. Kill you. What the fuck? And recycling symbols. And how does a fax machine work? And some drag racing. Now the brute has eaten the airplane. Now we have some angry punks.
Easy.
That's massive.
So that was Jesus Christ Motocross, and a fitting title, I think. You just don't know what to expect next. I didn't want to talk over the demo because it goes in such a rapid tempo. It is 110% from start to finish, and you don't get a chance to breathe or realize what you're watching. The 3D itself is rather humble. It is line vectors with some shading on it, and probably you could make a demo like this in AMOS, but you'd have to have a 3D engine, proper 3D engine for it. But it's just a welcome change from all the, perhaps, there were very many moody demos, and I've opted not to put any of them on my list, I think. There might be a couple that come close, but there was some of these years were moody and brooding and sort of depressed, and you could see that reflected in many demos. And this demo just doesn't care.
Yeah.
This is what they wanted to show, and they showed it, from start to finish. And with any other music track to that demo, it would have tanked, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But since it works so well with the 110% tempo of the song, it just works.
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
That's the discussion I had with Smash. He starts with music as well, and then builds from there. So much of the demo pacing is derived from the music, and if you have music that doesn't fit the overall theme, it will fall flat. So yeah, that was very driven by the music.
Yeah. So here's an exception. By all means, watch this on your Amigas or watch the recording on YouTube. Here I've opted for a live recording of this 4K intro because it affected me so greatly when I was at Breakpoint. So what are these strange patterns? So now we have some attention and some blitz, right? So what is this? Just a static 2D screen with some blinking lights on it? Well, you are about to be surprised as I was. So when I look at this and ask myself, how has he done this? I have to think long and hard. I'm still not sure I've understood it completely, partly because of those lines stretching at the left edge of the screen there. So this is all true color, full resolution, with lots and lots of alpha blending and well, shade bobs. So that when you max out to white, you don't wrap around the color. So pretty much everything in this demo is a question for me. How did he make the music? How did he make that effect right there? How does he shoot particles in front of the, so to speak, cursor? So this runs on 68040 and above.
I mean, not all demos age well. How, if you compare this, if this was released on a party tomorrow, how would it compare?
I would love it. Yeah. So this is from 2010,
and it would still be competitive.
Absolutely, partly because of the size restrictions, but I think it stands alone as a demo experience. You will not have seen anything like this before on Amiga. And even these zooms right now, he can zoom in and out freely. How does he do that? How does he? It's Blueberry. He has some tricks up his sleeve. And a great soft synth. So this would be either center or precursor to it. And the music is just so great with the visuals. If you're talking about first making the music and then making a demo to it, can't get much closer than this. So sometimes you need scenes, sometimes you need a story, sometimes you need to be told, sometimes you need spinning blob effects, and sometimes you just need very simple visuals with a perfectly honed track. Again, this is one of the absolute best soundtracks made for a demo on Amiga ever, in my book.
And was this 64K or no?
No, 4K.
4K?
4K bytes. That's all you get.
That's ridiculous.
It is fairly ridiculous, yes.
I mean, one of the samples would eat all of that, but no, I guess sounds were generated.
The instruments and possibly the song as well was generated before the demo started, yes. And it takes about 2 minutes, but such is the case also for other soft synths
No.
like Exploder's demo Inviction, was it? Incision, sorry. So yeah, Exploder had something on Blueberry, and I didn't think so. I really thought he was the best from this demo. I've adored him for many things, but for this demo especially.
What is the name? I can.
Ika Dala Wampu.
Okay, yeah, of course. Does that mean anything, or?
I've memorized it because I like it so much.
Yeah,
If you don't, if you can't say the name correctly, you don't love it. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I've seen it for the first time, so bear with me. I might rehearse it more.
All right.
But does it mean anything? Do you know, or?
I tried to Google it. It may be an Indian surname, and it is the case with many special effects that since the 1970s, Asians and especially Indian mathematicians have had a lot to say in creating algorithms and so on. But I haven't found an actual Indian mathematician called Ikadala Wampu. So I don't, it's still a mystery to me. All right. So now we have one of the absolute greats on Amiga. They are from Poland. I hope I should have looked this up, but surely yes. So this is Mr. Wozniak, Kiero, which is a true hero on the Amiga. He makes 3D engines that work on PPC and PC and can be ported to Amiga. And they are of great quality. And they have made many second place finishers for Breakpoint and Revision. This is the only of those Breakpoint, the only Breakpoint entry where they actually won the demo competition, and with some pretty stiff competition as well. And I think, again, well, I can comment as we speak.
Where are we now? Is this number 8 or?
I don't quite know. I'll be able to tell.
Let's see.
Because we will finish on a 2017 demo. So this would be 2011.
And please say this is a full disc, or it's not an intro thing.
This is a demo, yes.
Thank you.
So it's a normal size demo. It's it fits a soundtrack and then a meg or two for the graphics and code. So already here you can see some baked-in shading, in general high quality work on the textures, high precision coordinates. I would have said some sub-pixel precision on the anti-aliasing. And overall a well-lit and well-composed scene, and we're left to wonder what that spaceship was doing flying through the cloud city. on a real Amiga, this would look even better because of the scan lines of the CRT and actually better color reproduction than the codecs used for the video. Some excellently lit and blurred scenes there. We have some voxels. But as with the previous 3D engine demos, I wanted to highlight the overall 3D graphics quality, especially in this scene here. It's very nicely graded. And gives, yeah, it's just eye candy to me. I can watch this for hours. Looks so very good. So now the spaceship has crash landed. We still don't quite know what's going on, but that's alright, because now we change the music. See what happens. So Elude has done quite a few demos before and since, and they have always been stiff competition and high quality work in the coding department. So this is perhaps a coder's pick more than the others for me. Here we have a double ribbons, not only one ribbon but two. Some light casting on the tunnel ribbons.
No greetings part.
Yeah, it's a nice greetings part, I think. Almost graffiti-like. So you can see a bloom effect, and that was present also in a couple of the previous parts. This wants to look like ambient occlusion. Let's see what happens. Not really. But still nice.
Super nice.
So here we go. I was choosing between this and a couple of others. And this is a demo I chose for concept. So this is Loonies and Ghost Town and Loonies. And again, we see blueberry coding. We see some new stuff and some familiar stuff in this demo, but the main point isn't just the effects, even though the effects are crisp enough. But we have a concept inspired by a recent movie trilogy.
And Riverwatch, it's a demo in Poland, right?
Yeah, I think so. So some scene commentary. You can choose to go with a blue pill, like in the Matrix. Choose Elude. Or you can, what was it? Be revealed the true nature of the Matrix by Ghost Town and Loonies. So let's see what they have for us. So they have a consistent style. Here you see a blood vessel. It's kind of hard to tell. At first you just see it as a background, but then when you understand the concept, you see it as a blood vessel. And now we're inside it.
Of course we are.
We are a red pill inside of a blood vessel. So, yeah.
Are we all just machines controlled by mathematics?
Here, Ghost Town and Loonies take a great risk by putting vocals in music. This is usually punished, but not this time. They won the competition.
Are we all just machines controlled by mathematics? We dream electric dreams, got lost in human traffic.
So a bit cheesy, but a lot of work on the graphics and design side of things.
Ephidrena, TBN, AGA, hot job, software, fail, ozone, spaceballs, focus design, tractor, Amiga.
And here we have a spine. We're at the doctor's office right now.
Revolution.
So if I were to take a concept to perfection, we got a doctor dropping some blobs on us there. It's a very driven production. It has the feeling of it couldn't turn out any other way. There was a very clear script behind this demo. It's
Right.
almost a little bit Dr. House.
Dr. House, yes.
Um,
You, Laurie.
all right. Whoops. Press the wrong button. And press the wrong button again because YouTube hid it from me. There we go. All right, so that was number 9. And coming up is my last demo. In the last few years, it feels like OCS has risen a little bit and AGA 060 has dropped a little bit, perhaps with Elude's departure even from a few years ago from the scene. And it was kind of difficult to show you something that I haven't shown you before in other demos. But here is a return of a Finnish group from that actually started on Amiga OCS. I don't know if the same coders were involved in this, but here we return to grading when you make your demo look like a movie. And this is often the case on PC, but you often get a lot slower scenes, and they can almost be. I wanted to juxtapose the previous demo by Ghost Town and Loonies with the PC scene in that it had fast scenes, it was not afraid of color, and it still had a driven concept behind it. And apart from a concept, you can also have not necessarily a story, because stories are hard to conjure up that will not run out of steam at some point, I find. But at least a common theme and a common style. So on PC, then you often had these grayscale demos with extremely slow scenes that I have a very hard time for. So what would a modern. What would the most recent Amiga demo be that could compete with the PC demo scene in that regard, in regards with cinematics?
There is an inexorable force in the cosmos.
Now the focus is not the objects here. In fact, the objects are quite mundane, but the soundtrack and the sort of film effects added to the relatively simple scenes are what is the point of this demo, I think. And what I especially like is how the audio fits so well in with what's presented visually. It is you can sync and you can flash things and stuff like that, but when it comes to setting a mood, if you can do it with color grading and film grain and glow and all that, and also get a soundtrack that matches it. And here we're zooming into a nebula. So we are definitely in space, and we are about to witness a singularity. So in some sense, this demo is a return to 1996-7-ish, with the relatively simple objects and not a massive 3D engine and Fong shaded objects, but it is nevertheless a very good showing, and it's the one I like the most. It's the one that affected me the most of the ones I saw. And that is perhaps the trouble. What do you do when everyone has seen everything? Well, you put Saturn on the screen. So to me, this is a dialogue back from the earlier PC demos that also had space themes. And it's a way of saying, hey, hold my beer. I can do that on Amiga. Here you see a mesh transforming between Fong and flat shaded. So I spoke before about a driven theme concept or something like that. You don't really get to find out what the end of this is. It is mostly eye candy, I would say, but I think it's done so very well. So if I were to point to not a coder's demo but a designer's demo, I would point to this one. And I felt it unfair to just have coder demos on my list when I thought it looked so good. All right. So that is my list.
Super, Henrik. This has been totally amazing. Thank you so much for the amazing work you've been investing in this, and I also know we scheduled this like a week or two ago, but you weren't perfectly happy with your list, so you worked really, really hard on your list. It's not just some 10 random picks. You really invested time in picking the perfect ones to fit like your real top 10.
Yeah, I think it reflects me as a person, like the very colorful Ghost and Loonies demo there. That was a bit playful and had a pure concept behind it, implemented perfectly. Whether you like or love that demo or not, I wanted to have it on my list.
No.
And then when it comes to, like I said, boring PC demos with slow scenes, I thought that Unique did that so well that I wanted to show that an Amiga demo can certainly be released that would impress a PC scener today. I think that's it. So I had, as always, too many demos and too many favorites on my list. And if I could, I would fill all 10 spots from the amazing 40K intro and 68030 50 megahertz era, because I think those most fairly represent the spirit of everyone learning and developing new effects for Amiga, because it was a clear transition from the mostly 2D effects on OCS.
I must say the punk tune was also a very refreshing change from a lot of the others. So
that was
really good, really good.
That was a pure personal pick. So while I have picked some demos here that I could have replaced by another demo, like another one of my favorites, I felt like it would be like seeing the same demo again.
Yeah, that was excellent. I think this would have been close to 2 hours, or even if we passed 2 hours. I don't know how much we will eventually cut off from the original recording time. So Henrik, so I think we should have people go back to their normal lives. But thank you so much for the effort of selecting this and the awesome way
My
which
pleasure.
you have presented them and also explained on. And sorry for being a bit silent at times, because I mean, it's not easy to kind of speak when you're just looking totally stunned on what you see. So excellent selection and super great work, Henrik. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bacchus.
That was today's episode. Humble thanks to Photon, Henrik, for taking the time to look through. He indicated 100 to 150 demos to pick these 10, and he was humbly ashamed for neglecting a number of the really known names in the scene, and but he wanted to pick those particular ones, which means that he had to leave a number of really good demos from a number of really good groups out. So sorry about that. These are the 10 that happen to be his favorite, and you might agree on that and you might disagree on that. That's absolutely fine. Anybody is free to make their own list. So just make your own list if you want to have some other 10. But you couldn't say that Photon has picked 10 bad ones, because they were all excellent. So thank you for taking the time. We should say that from next week, Torsten is moving houses. That means that we might have limited bandwidth to actually do video edits. So sorry about that, but there might be a little time gap now between this episode and the next one. But hopefully we will come strong with a strong queue of promising content coming up. So until the next time, bye bye.